Do you believe someone could love you so much they want to be you, and then not just copy your hairstyle, your voice, or your habits, but erase you from your own life, piece by piece? In today's true Reddit story, you'll hear a chilling tale of a younger sister obsessed with becoming her older sister, to the point of forging an entire identity, manipulating the entire family, and turning sisterhood into a nightmare. It started with the small things, sharing the same perfume, practicing the same smile, until one day the real sister realized she was being replaced in documents on social media and even in the eyes of her own parents. And just when it seemed over, after a terrifying attack involving superglue that left their mother temporarily blind, the truth was only beginning to surface. Because the imposter was still pulling strings from inside a psychiatric facility. You think you know where love ends and madness begins. Listen till the very end. Because sometimes the one who wants to make you disappear is the only person who ever called you sister. Chapter 1. When my little sister wanted to become me. I started feeling like something was wrong on a birthday morning. But it wasn't my birthday, it was Emma's, my little sister's. She walked into the kitchen with her hair parted to the side, exactly the way I usually wore mine, and she had on this old sweater I used to love. She smiled at Dad and said, "You always liked it when she wore this, didn't you? I hadn't even processed what was happening yet." Dad just chuckled and nodded out of habit. Mom said nothing. She glanced at me, then back at Emma, and the worry in her eyes was unmistakable. As for me, I just felt weird. But back then, I didn't think much of it. I just thought, at least she's not crying herself to sleep every night anymore. I had always tried to protect Emma. After our parents divorced, I lived with Mom, and so did Emma, but every weekend, Dad would come pick me up. Movies, ice cream, walks in the park, like some kind of special privilege I never really understood why only I got. Emma didn't get those. Dad always had a reason. He was too busy, or he forgot, or next time, sweetheart. Emma would sit by the window for hours waiting for a car that never came. The first time I saw Emma cry wasn't because of Dad, it was because of me. Because I was loved. And she wasn't. At first, she just liked sitting next to me while I did homework. She started copying my handwriting, mimicking how I held my pen. One time she even joked, "Dad says your handwriting is the prettiest in the whole family." I laughed. I thought it was just her way of trying to be closer to me. But then, it went too far. She started using the same shampoo as me. She secretly took my perfume. I once caught her standing in front of the mirror, smiling, then repeating the way I smiled. Every little detail. It was unsettling. At school, Emma began introducing herself using my name. At first, I thought she was joking, but then her classmates started calling her Big Sis, and she never corrected them. Mom said maybe it was just her way of coping with the divorce. Even the school counselor thought so. Everyone thought she was healing, but I knew better. She wasn't healing. She was disappearing. And in her place was a perfect replica of me. After summer break, Emma called me into her room. She grinned wide and opened her mouth. Her two front teeth had been filed down to look exactly like the chipped tooth I'd had since falling off a bike back in 7th grade. I was speechless. She beamed. The dentist said it was weird, but I begged and they did it. Then she opened her closet. It was exactly like mine, outfit by outfit, day by day, accessories and all. She even had a schedule to match the look for the day. I tried to stay calm. I spoke gently. "Emma, this is a bit too much." She stared at me, eyes cold and almost euphoric. "You don't get it," she said. "Last week, Dad called me by your name. He's finally starting to see me." That sent shivers down my spine. That night, Mom called us both downstairs. Her hands were shaking. The school had called. They discovered Emma had submitted a test using my name. The teacher demanded an immediate parent meeting. Before I could even respond, Emma snapped, "You're just jealous because Dad's starting to love me." She ran upstairs, slammed the door. We heard furniture being dragged, something heavy being pushed, then the sound of a lock clicking into place. Mom spent an hour knocking, begging her to open the door. But all we heard from the other side was screaming, "You hate me because I'm the one Dad loves." I stood there frozen. That was the first moment I realized Emma was no longer my little sister. She wasn't just copying me. She was trying to become me. Chapter 2. Copying no longer just child's play. I tried to forget what happened that day. Tried to convince myself that Emma was just going through some emotional mess after the divorce, that she'd grow out of it, that sisterly love would bring her back. But the more I ignored it, the more I felt like a shadow being pulled out of my own life. Emma wasn't just copying me randomly. She studied me. She watched me, every movement, every decision. She analyzed it like I was a character she had to play flawlessly. I found out she'd been secretly taking notes on my habits, what sunscreen I used, how I tied my hair when I was in a rush, the music I listened to when I was sad, or she even knew I typed my laptop password using just my left index and middle fingers. And then she started practicing every detail. One day I came home earlier than expected. I opened the door to my room and found Emma standing in front of the mirror, wearing my pajamas, holding her phone, recording herself. As she tried to read a message exactly the way I'd say it to my boyfriend, she didn't panic. She just turned to me, smiled calmly, and said, "You should read it more like this. A bit higher pitch at the end. It sounds cuter." I was speechless, couldn't get a word out, and still I wasn't firm enough. I just took the phone from her hand and walked out. I didn't tell Mom, didn't tell my boyfriend, didn't tell anyone. I was scared, not scared that Emma would hurt me. I was scared that if I spoke up, I'd lose the little sister I once loved, the girl who used to sit by the window every afternoon waiting for Dad's car, the one who clung to me during thunderstorms, holding my hand tight and whispering, "Don't leave me, okay?" But love wasn't enough to make things go back to normal. Things really spiraled out of control the day Emma called my boyfriend and pretended to be me. Jake, my boyfriend, asked if I'd just called him because the voice sounded weirdly cold. I told him no. He sent me the voicemail recording, and it was my voice, almost perfect, but not me. The pronunciation was too crisp, the sentences too polished, and at the end of the call, she laughed. But it wasn't my laugh. It was a distorted version, mechanical, like someone mimicking the sound of breathing. Jake thought I was playing some creepy joke. I didn't blame him. Honestly, if I hadn't known better, I might have believed it was me too. That was when I got serious. I snuck into Emma's room while she was out, and I found it a thick notebook filled with handwriting exactly like mine. She had recorded every one of my habits by the hour, even the tiniest behaviors like 7:42 a.m. She plays music before brushing her teeth. Usual pick Arctic monkeys. 9:18. First sip of coffee. She frowns very slightly. I flip to the last page. One sentence written in bold letters. She is me. I am her. No more distance. I threw up on the spot, and I knew then it was time to tell Mom. Mom went quiet for a long time after I told her everything. She didn't say a word, just buried her face in her hands, then walked to her room and closed the door. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark, staring at the streetlight flickering through the curtains, trying to figure out how everything had gone so wrong. How did a little sister turn love into possession? I started to realize Emma wasn't just a hurt little girl anymore. She was turning me into something to erase. And if I didn't do something soon, there had come a day when no one would even remember who I was. Chapter 3. The Night of Glue and Blinding Eyes. I still don't know why I said yes. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was just too used to giving in. That night, Emma knocked on my door, her voice barely a whisper. "Hey, can we watch a movie together like we used to?" I promise I won't do anything weird. I was going to say no, honestly. But her eyes, they still looked like my little sister's. At least I wanted to believe they did. So I nodded. And while she sat next to me watching sitcoms like Two Normal Sisters, I almost forgot about that disturbing notebook. Almost. I'm gonna use the bathroom real quick, Emma said, getting up. I didn't think much of it, but instead of turning left toward the bathroom, she walked toward Mom's room. I leaned forward, heart skipping a beat. Emma. No response. I stepped into the hallway, and when I pushed Mom's door open just a crack, the hallway light spilled into the room, and onto a scene I will never, and maybe can never, unsee. Emma was sitting by the bed, hunched over holding a tube of superglue. My mom, still unconscious from her sleeping pills, lay motionless. Emma was carefully pressing her eyelids shut, one by one, bit by bit, as if she was sealing her eyes closed. An empty bottle of sleeping pills sat next to the bed. I screamed, Emma, what the hell are you doing? She didn't turn around. She just whispered voice, soft like a chant. These ugly eyes ruined our family. Now she won't be able to see, won't be able to lie anymore. I lunged toward her, trying to grab the glue, and she whipped around, grabbing my wrist tightly. She was shockingly strong. You don't understand, she screamed, eyes wide and wild. Mom always looked at me like I was some stain, but if she can't see anymore, things will be better. Dad will have to save us, and I'll be you. Mom started to stir, groaning faintly. My eyes. My eyes. She screamed, hands clawing at her face in sheer panic, trying to pry open eyelids that were now sealed shut. Emma stepped back, folding her arms, watching the scene with a strange, serene expression. Perfect, she whispered. Now Mom's as ugly on the outside as she is inside. I trembled as I pulled out my phone and tried to call the police. No one picked up. In panic, I called Dad. Minutes later, he burst through the front door. He saw Mom convulsing on the bed, eyes glued shut, Emma still holding the superglue tube and smiling like she'd just completed a masterpiece. Daddy! I fixed it, she whispered. He didn't say a word. He just ran to her, trying to restrain her as she started kicking and screaming in his face. I did it for you. You should be thanking me. Now Mom can't lie anymore, and I can finally be the one you love. The scene was so chaotic that paramedics had to sedate Emma twice just to get her under control. Mom kept screaming over and over, I can't see, and I just stood there, glue still on my hands, body frozen, mind numb. Emma was taken away, but even as the ambulance drove off, I saw her face pressed against the window, dreamy smile eyes glowing with twisted satisfaction. She truly believed that she had just saved our family by tearing it apart. The nightmare continues in the dark. I thought that after that night, it would all be over. Emma had been admitted to a juvenile psychiatric facility. Mom was undergoing treatment at a specialized eye hospital. I still had red marks on my arms from when Emma had gripped me so tightly as I tried to wrestle the glue away. I thought it was done. But then my phone rang. 3 a.m. No one said anything, just the sound of breathing, and then a whisper. Soft. So soft it felt like it was coming from right beside my pillow. I figured it out. The problem was I tried to become you, while you still existed. I dropped my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't even pick it up. Emma. It was Emma's voice. She had called me from the hospital. I looked at the clock. 3:07 a.m. Mom was still in the hospital. Dad had gone with her to sign Emma's admission paperwork. I was home, alone. I locked every window, pushed a dresser against my bedroom door, grabbed my phone and started taking screenshots of the call log, texting them to myself as backup evidence. I remembered what the psychiatrist had warned my parents when Emma was admitted. Emma may present herself as calm and obedient, but internally, she may be extremely dangerous. And he was right. The next morning, I received a text from an unknown number. It was a photo. Emma, lying in a hospital bed wearing her standard issue gown, but she had drawn all over it with markers, stars, and moons, the exact same patterns as my favorite pajamas. There was even a fake coffee stain on the sleeve, just like the one I got last week. The message read, Don't worry, sis. I'm not going anywhere. I threw my phone onto the bed and bolted out of the house like I was being chased. I ran straight to my dad's apartment. He opened the door still in his robe, coffee cup in hand. I shoved my phone toward him, voice shaking. Dad, you're still in contact with Emma, aren't you? He froze. The cup trembled in his hands. On it was a scribbled phrase, "World's best dad." I recognized the handwriting. It was Emma's. He sank into a chair, buried his face in his hands. And for the first time in my life, I saw my father cry like a child. He confessed he'd been visiting Emma every day. He thought that by telling her about life on the outside, my movie nights, my weekend plans, she would feel connected, loved. He didn't realize Emma was memorizing every detail to replace me. When I got back home, Mom was in the kitchen, her eyes still covered in bandages. She was trying to make coffee, hands trembling, sugar spilling all over the counter. When she heard me walk in, she asked, "Is that you?" Then she started crying, and she said something I never expected. "Emma asked me a lot about you, about the day you were born, the time, the weather, the doctor's name. I thought she was doing a school project about family. I didn't know." I was speechless. Right then, my phone buzzed again. It was Jake, my boyfriend. He'd just received a strange phone call. Someone pretending to be me had called his office asking about his work schedule, his lunch break, what time he usually left the building alone. Luckily, the receptionist thought the voice was odd. It sounded like me, but a bit too robotic. She refused to give out any info. Jake asked me, "Are you being watched?" I didn't answer, because the truth was worse than that. I wasn't just being watched. I was being replaced. And worse still, the one doing it still carried my last name. Chapter 5, Counterattack. When I became an unwilling investigator, I never thought I'd live like a detective, stalking, recording, tracking my little sister's every move like I was solving a case. But if I didn't, no one would know what was real or who I really was anymore. I started saving everything: texts, emails, call logs, screenshots, time-stamped notes. I created a folder called Emma Do Not Delete, backed it up to 3 different cloud services, printed hard copies, and locked them in a drawer. Everything I once considered private had to be protected like evidence, because each day, Emma got one step closer. 2 days later, my best friend Mia called panicked. She had just received a friend request from a brand new social media account. Profile picture: a photo of me, a candid shot taken from an angle I only posted once in a private story. The account messaged Mia, "Did you tell her what you said? Do you think I'm sick or something?" The phrasing, the punctuation. It was all too careful. Not like me. Mia sent a few probing replies to test the waters, and just as I feared, Emma couldn't replicate how I spoke when I was upset. I screenshotted the whole chat, added it to the folder. Mom had started helping me gather evidence. From a woman temporarily blinded by her own daughter's superglue, she became the gatekeeper of sanity. Every time I received a strange message or phone call, she'd ask, "Does it sound like something you'd say? Is the tone off?" We recreated every message, retraced the impersonator's steps. Dad was still the weak link. Though he'd stopped visiting Emma after that horrific night, he remained emotionally attached. I understood. She was his daughter. But I didn't have time for compassion, not when someone out there was still rehearsing how to be me. I started going to the psychiatric facility where Emma was held, but not to visit her. Every Tuesday afternoon, visitor day, I parked in the lot with sunglasses, a baseball cap, and a camera, like I was spying on a cheating spouse. And that's when I saw Chloe. Chloe was Emma's former classmate expelled for plagiarism. Now she walked out of the building holding a large brown envelope. I followed her to a FedEx location. After she left, I walked in and pretended to be her sister. "My little sister forgot to drop off something really important," I said. A kind employee pointed to the package that hadn't been shipped yet. It had my name on it, my home address. I requested to delay the shipment and picked it up the next day. Inside were falsified school transfer papers, a name change form, and a legal request to change my name to Emma. The signature was almost flawless. Even the way I tilt my lowercase t slightly to the left perfectly mimicked. My arms went limp. And then I laughed. A hollow, surreal laugh, part mockery, part panic, part defeat. Emma wasn't trying to become me anymore. She had decided I no longer existed. I called Mom's lawyer, immediately asked for legal advice on handling falsified documents. I sent over scans along with verified copies of my real signature for comparison. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room surrounded by stacks of documents, hard drives, phones, folders. Mom sat beside me, her eyesight still weak, but her fingers traced each printout like she was feeling the truth through her fingertips. She whispered, not looking at me, "You used to be the sweetest one in the family. But now, you're the strongest." I didn't know if that was a compliment or an apology, maybe both. All I knew was, from this moment forward, I was no longer the victim in my own story. I would expose Emma. Not just to protect myself, but to reclaim my identity from someone who had stolen it, through mimicry smiles and dreams that were never hers to begin with. Chapter 6. The Truth Exposed. Our family isn't what it used to be. My family was never the picture-perfect kind, but I used to believe, at the very least, we loved each other, in our own way. That night, after I uncovered all the forged documents Emma had sent, we all sat down together in the living room for the first time in months. No one spoke for the first few minutes. Dad stared at the floor. Mom, still wearing bandages over her eyes, reached carefully for a glass of water. I sat between them, feeling like I'd just fought a silent war no one else had seen. And then, Dad started to speak. No excuses, no deflection. Just the truth, raw and painful. He admitted that for years, he had unconsciously treated Emma and me differently. Not because I behaved better, not because I got better grades, but because I reminded him of Mom when she was young, and Emma reminded him of Mom after everything had fallen apart. He didn't say it in those exact words, but I understood. When he looked at me, he saw youth. When he looked at Emma, he saw divorce, exhaustion, endless arguments, and the version of love that broke down. And Emma, even as a child, had felt it. Mom stayed quiet for a long time. Then she spoke, voice trembling, but firm. I'm to blame too. She told us that when she was 17, she had tried to become her older sister, dressed like her, joined the same classes, even forged her signature to skip school. For a while, she believed she had to be a copy of someone else to deserve love. She'd even been sent for short-term psychiatric treatment, but no one in our family ever knew, not even Dad. She kept it a secret, out of shame and fear that history would repeat itself in her daughter. But silence was the shadow that fed the monster in our home. Emma never got help early. She was never loved in the right way. And I became the distorted mirror she clung to just to exist. I don't know exactly how I felt in that moment. Anger, sadness, or maybe just numb. All I knew was I was sitting between two people who once believed they were protecting their child, only to realize they had passed down a legacy of pain. Mom placed her hand on mine. Dad looked at me, really looked at me for the first time without flinching. "We're not going to let this happen again," he said. And I believed him. Not because I forgave him, but because I knew if I didn't believe, I'd become the next version of this cycle. We started rebuilding, slowly, painfully. Mom's lawyer helped me file for a formal restraining order against Emma and anyone associated with Project Sister. Mom assisted me in completing the documentation. Dad found a family therapist and started learning how to be a parent from scratch. Each of us carried a wound, but at least we were finally willing to face it. I still remember the weight of printing the final copy of the Emma file, thick, heavy, and heartbreaking. I clipped it into a binder and locked it inside the small safe Dad had bought for me. Next to it were Mom's savings book, my birth certificate, and the old family photo album, the one we'd hidden away for years because looking back only brings pain. For the first time in my life, I felt like my identity was being protected with everything my family still had to give. We were no longer the same family we once were, but at least we'd stopped pretending everything was okay. And for me, that was enough to start again. Chapter 7, we survived, but not in one piece. 3 years later, Emma is still in a psychiatric facility, now transferred to the adult ward. Her condition is listed as stable but without significant progress. In other words, she's learned how to play the obedient patient, but inside her mind, everything still spins around me, I know. Because the letters still come, not sent directly to me, but to others, doctors, nurses, even neighbors, who then quietly forward photos of them from anonymous accounts. I keep them all. Letters that begin with "Dear Sister" and end with my own forged signature. Some are written in a shaky scrawl, as if Emma deliberately made her hand tremble to mimic my handwriting when I'm exhausted. Some are written in whispers. I know that sounds strange, but when you stare at hundreds of those letters looping, repeating, fading into circles, you begin to understand that they don't need to say anything specific anymore. They just need to remind me that she's still there. My sister is dead. That's what a fellow patient once whispered to a doctor when asked about Emma. The girl just stared into nothingness and said, "My sister is dead. Now I am the sister." No one knows if that was her own voice or a line Emma taught her. But when I listened to the audio recording from Dr. Chen, a chill ran down my spine. Because that tone, it sounded exactly like Emma in middle school. When she first started calling me sister, eyes wide with admiration. I grew up with the feeling that there was always a shadow following me. Now that shadow is still there, but it's no longer my little sister. It's a hollow space where I used to have a sister, used to have a family, used to have a childhood that didn't require password protecting my entire life. I graduated college under the protection of 2 security guards arranged by the university. Jake, my boyfriend, proposed on a quiet, peaceful night, and even in that moment of joy, I still glanced over my shoulder. We moved into a small apartment with cameras in every corner. Every door has 3 locks. Not because I'm under threat, but because I no longer know what safety is. My mom, now permanently wearing glasses due to corneal damage, is the only one who truly understands. She doesn't ask if I'm okay. She just asks, do you want to check the cameras today? Or should I? And maybe in this world, that counts as a kind of love. Emma still sends letters, but they never reach me anymore. The hospital staff filters them out. They catalog number and report them. I used to think I'd feel satisfied, vindicated, but I don't. I just feel lighter knowing everything is documented. That for the first time in my life, my story is the one being recorded, not rewritten by someone else. We survived. My family warped, broken, stitched back together, still exists. Mom continues her treatments. Dad still goes to weekly therapy. And me, I've learned to make peace with the truth that surviving is a kind of victory. I don't forgive Emma, but I don't hate her anymore either, because I know I wasn't the one who made her that way. I was simply the one who refused to disappear. And that more than anything is why she hated me so much. In the end, this story wasn't just about a girl being impersonated by her own sister. It wasn't just about manipulation, chaos, or real-life nightmares. It was about identity, about fighting to remain yourself in a world where the people you love most can't always see your true worth. Emma, broken, unstable, and scarred, wasn't a monster, but she wasn't a sister anymore either. She became a distorted mask shaped by favoritism expectation and a desperate hunger to be loved no matter the cost. And the older sister, despite having her life peeled away layer by layer, stayed standing. Or not because she was strong, but because she had no other choice but not to disappear. If you've ever felt like the forgotten one in your family, if you've ever had to fight just to hold on to your story while someone else tried to rewrite it, you are not alone. Thank you for listening to this story on True Reddit Reads. If something in this story struck a chord with you, leave a comment below. Because maybe your story is the next wake-up call someone out there needs to hear.